All right, welcome out to the Recreation Parks Commission for Redondo Beach. Okay, hello, welcome out to the City of Redondo Beach Recreation Parks Commission meeting. It's Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. And I'd like to open the meeting with a call to order.
Would you like me to do roll call?
Yeah, let's do
Okay,
a roll call.
perfect. Commissioner McCauley?
Here.
Commissioner Rowe?
Here.
Commissioner Corman-Super?
Here.
And Chairperson Varvarigos?
Here.
And I'd like to just note the absence of Commissioners Lang and Escontrias, and that Commissioner Light is no longer on the commission. So that explains his absence this evening.
Okay, let's salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, did everybody have a chance to look on the agenda? Any questions, or do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda?
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to item E, blue folder items. We have, what are our blue folder items today?
We actually don't have any blue folder items this evening.
Oh, okay. Just the consent calendar?
That's correct, yes.
All right. So item F1 is the affidavit of posting. Is this something you want to elaborate on?
Actually, for the consent calendar, if I may, just see if the commission would like to pull any of the items. So we just have F1 and F2. If the commission doesn't have any comments on either, we can just entertain a motion to approve both together.
Okay, F2 being the approval of minutes from May 10th. Is that from this commission, the minutes?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes.
And, okay, is there a motion or any questions regarding F1 or F2? Or do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and no excluded consent calendar items. Moving on to item H, public participation on non-agenda items. And for those who might be new, this is intended for those to give 3 minutes, 30 minutes long. Each speaker will be 4 to 3 minutes to address the commission.
So we have Ron Morocco.
Oh, fancy.
Oh, wow.
Is that
No,
new?
Very
That's
cool.
impressive.
Teaching us.
I think we
I can't
should
read
go ahead
otherwise.
and Prove it every does.
My name is Ron Morocco. I did want to start off by apologizing for not being here at the May meeting when you discussed the proposed historic timeline. I wasn't told it was going to be on the agenda, and I wasn't invited to the meeting till the day after the meeting. So you guys talked about it in May. What is the Redondo Beach timeline? It's just like any timeline that you've seen, except it's through signs and has two components, the date and the event. So what I would like to do today is try to answer the questions that you had posed to your staff liaison, and I'm going to use as like my guidepost the May minutes from your agenda packet. First, this is not the first time that we've discussed to this commission the timeline project. I came when I was chair of the Historic Commission in the public comment section on October 12th, 2022. It was also in your director's oral report on January 11th, 2023. So why did we even make this proposal? In March 2020, our museum was closed because of COVID. And for whatever reason, community service has not been able to find a staff person to open the museum itself. So except for maybe once a month, our historic museum remains closed, and this has been that way for 3 years. Thus, we are coming up with ideas to bring historical information outdoors. So if someone shows up at Dominguez Park, they're not wasting their time coming down there. They're able to come up and see what's going on. If a third grader has a Redondo history project, they can access meaningful historical information. So what did the Historical Commission send you? It's a park. It's Dominguez Park. You have a say in all the features. That's why we sent it off to you. We've done joint projects with the Parks and Recs before. We had historical lawn signs, which you approved. We had historical themed murals and parquettes that you've approved a couple locations. We worked together on a project to do an Edo family open space, namely the naming of it and the conceptual plan. So from what I got out of the minutes, and I'm glad Commissioner Contreras is here because he asked the question during the meeting, we propose that along the half-mile walking path that circumnavigates the park, there be historical timeline markers. You had an illustration in your materials. The number of signs, this what caused the biggest source of confusion at your May meeting when the Historical Commission approved the project to send on to you on September 21st, 2022, 7 months earlier. It was with the clear understanding that we were sending it to you to determine the number of signs. We could come up with 30 or 40 different markings, and I'm going to ask for an extension of time because this is the third meeting I've been trying to attend. Thank you.
Second.
Second.
So we had, and it's in our minutes, we were sending it here for you guys all to tell us how many signs you wanted. Did you want 1 sign? Did you want 3 signs? Did you want 20 signs? Did you want to make it a pilot project to see what the community response is? This is a park, you're in charge of the features. We wanted you to decide, A, yes, you wanted to go ahead with the project, and B, it's your call on how many signs you wanted to put in there. It's still your call. You sent it back to Historical Commission. But again, if you look at our minutes from September 2022, it was, we want you to tell us how many signs and we'll come up with the content for you. The cost was also another issue that was brought up. Originally, when the staff liaison, who happened to be the same person that's sitting here today, the city has a sign shop. And we were trying to keep the costs down. If you notice, the design is similar to what we've had before, but the sign shop has specifications. $200 to $300, they could do a 2-foot by 3-foot rectangle, hence the mock-up that you got the last time. The signposts, we were going to use the most popular signposts in the city, the ones you see with the stop signs that have all the holes in it, so you just have to attach a bolt to it. The installation costs, I did check with the city treasurer. This would be the only project ever being allocated out installation costs. It's all part of the budget that Public Works gets, so that's not a factor. So the number that was given you, I think is a high estimate. I still think it's going to be between $200 to $300 per sign. If you say you want 3 signs, $900, $1,000 max, that should be easily taken care of. You asked questions about funding sources. At the time that this was approved by the Historical Commission in September, we were given a $10,000 budget, unallocated. We could decide what to do with it. Obviously, if it didn't come to you until May, some of that money got allocated. But in May, we're looking at the following year, and again, we could get an additional allocation of money. There's Quimby fees for these kind of parks. The Beach Cities Health District, this is a combination of exercise. We probably could apply for a grant. Private donations, if you're doing 3 signs, I would have written a check to cover the cost of developing those signs. There was a question about QR codes. What if you don't have a phone with you? So if you recall traditional timelines, you just basically have the date, the event. This was going to give content to people who were in the park. It would link to the city website, allowing for supplemental pictures, text, audio. And if you didn't have a camera, you weren't limited to the fact that the museum is closed. You can come anytime you want when the park's open. One of the other objections that was, or comments that was raised in your minutes is, and I don't know how to respond to that, adding more projects to the Public Works Department. If we're talking 3 signs, I don't see how that's overstressing, making a lot of people work extra overtime. I think this is a non-factor, and I frankly think it was put in there to discourage you all from approving it. So when the Historical Commission sent it to over you September 22, we were looking for approval of the concept by you and you saying how many signs you wanted. It's a pretty simple thing. I'm no longer on the Historical Commission. I resigned from that. So you're going to be dealing with a different group. And frankly, with the proposal that you had said to send it back to Historical Commission, who's had quorum issues, you may never see it back again. But I just wanted to explain it to you so you have a clearer understanding, because it seemed like from your minutes and watching the meetings that it wasn't very clearly presented to you. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else who would like to make comments on non-agenda items? Are there any written responses, email? No?
Not at this time.
Okay. Moving on to, let's see, item J is receive and file report on the status of the city's sailing program. Item J1.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I do have a presentation. So if the commission will remember, a few months ago, there was a comment brought up about the sailing program and where we are with the current status of that, what happened to it essentially after it left the commission at the last time that you guys discussed it. And so we're here tonight to just provide an informational item to you so that you can understand where we are. In the report, I do go into a little bit of the history. I'll go into that a little bit here, but I'll definitely be more focusing on the more recent timeline of when the commission provided its recommendation to the council up to where we are today. So just a very brief history, and most of you will probably remember this because we did discuss the sailing program at several meetings. But the sailing classes and camps, when I say sailing program, that includes both sailing classes and camps. So I just want to kind of set that foundation there. The city has provided those for over 40 years out of King Harbor. It provides year-round classes and youth sailing camps that are taught by part-time city employees who have a number of certifications that provide them the knowledge to properly teach the courses. Another component of the sailing program is the Redondo Beach Sailing Club. And this was a local nonprofit organization established in 1973. It is a standalone club that, although it was affiliated with the city previously and had some affiliation with the city's sailing program, it was still an independent nonprofit organization. So its membership eligibility was contingent on the students' or participants' completion of the ASA 101 course, which the city provided. And essentially what would happen is once that course was completed and they became a member, that membership allowed sailors to be matched with more veteran and more experienced sailors to gain more hands-on experience. So it just gave them a little bit more of an enhanced experience sailing and refining some of their skills.
I apologize. I think we're having technical, can we get our screen is there's a toggle or a button?
So there's a button on your,
Button?
Present, rather.
press present,
Thank you.
present.
That's, yeah, I'll try PC. Thank you.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So fast forward to November of 2020, the city informed the sailing club that membership fees would begin to be collected exclusively by the city due to the club's sole usage of city vessels. So up until that point, the club only used city vessels for all of its membership activities. And so in 2020, and while they were using the city vessels, they were independently collecting the membership fees for the sailing club activities. And so in November 2020, the club itself was informed that the city would no longer allow them to to collect the membership fees because the city vessels were the ones that were being used for the membership program. So fast forward to March 2021, the city began actually collecting those membership fees. So in between there was the pandemic, and so there was no sailing program or activities for a little bit of time. So it wasn't until March 2021 till the city began collecting those membership fees.
Excuse me. Do you want us to wait till afterwards to ask the questions, or can we jump in? Because I think there's a little bit of clarification that needs to be kind of pointed out on this.
If you think it'll help with the presentation, now is okay, or if I can go through the whole thing, whatever.
Is my understanding is the information that I have received was that the sailing classes and camps were city-run.
That's correct.
Part-time city employees, okay? And that once they graduated from these classes, the Redondo Beach Sailing Club, who had an agreement with the city, an ongoing agreement for 20-something years or 30 years, that they could utilize city property, which meaning the boats, and that they would assist in the maintenance of those boats, either through sweat equity or to be able to fix the boats in one way or another. So, and actually they were to work independently of the sailing classes, and therefore they were not considered a vendor. That's my understanding.
So it's my understanding, and I have never been able to see any type of formal agreement.
Right.
There was.
Do you have an informal agreement? Because they were never considered, would not be considered a vendor. Just like, for example, if you're the tennis coach or the dog trainer, you have an agreement that in fact, the 70-30 split.
Right.
Okay. So therefore, they were utilizing the vessels at the approval of the city, or the people that were running the sailing classes. And then for whatever reason, suddenly someone decided that they wanted to cut into the membership, even though there was never an agreement. Is that true? They wanted.
I can't speak to why it happened, but yes.
However, but the city was asking to take the membership dues that the totally separate organization, the sailing club, was charging so that they could fund their program, okay? And also to ensure that the only other agreement that was involved, that my understanding is, the only other agreement that they had was that the sailing club would provide their own insurance to indemnify the city.
Right, but at that time, the only component to that program that utilized boats for the sailing piece of the membership activities
Right.
was solely utilizing the city's vessels.
Right.
And the city was collecting no membership fees. The city was collecting no income off of those club activities. So essentially, city property was being used without any type of compensation or any type of income coming to help support.
Yes.
Certainly, there's sweat equity, and I'm not discounting
I
that
get
by any
that.
means.
But
But that's
I would venture to say then is that there was still, whether written or not, an agreement between the sailing club and the city for 30-something or 20-something years.
There was, at some point, there certainly had to have been an informal agreement because, yes,
I
there
just want
was
to make sure that we're clear that they were actually
there was
not
a relationship.
vendor.
Correct. It was not a formal vendor. It was an informal
Right.
relationship, but
therefore-
nothing was in writing.
And again, I'm not an attorney or anything to say, therefore, the asking to share in the membership fees as opposed to stating, okay, now we want to. So I guess the information is the hows and whys of why suddenly somebody decided they no longer wanted them is would probably be in dispute. Is that fair to say?
It's probably being, what was that?
Dispute, the how and the why.
I can't speak to it,
That's what I'm
unfortunately.
saying.
Yes.
Okay, all right. But I'm saying though that they were a whole separate entity other than the sailing that allowed them for the 20, 30-something years, and that was the informal agreement. There was no MOA or anything else with anyone
Correct.
to do that.
Correct.
Nor was the city compensated for the use of them. At the same time, the city never asked to be compensated for them.
I don't know that to be true, but I mean,
Okay.
but I,
We can, okay?
Yeah.
But at the same time, the Redondo Beach Sailing Club was providing a service to the community for the benefit of the city and benefit of the community as well.
They were providing sailing club activities at that time. That was a kind of incremental component of the sailing program.
Right.
Yes.
Which enhanced the sailing program for the city.
I mean, that's a bit of a subjective. I'm not
Yeah.
questioning
would say,
it myself,
would you see
but
any
I'm just,
Well, it lasted for 20-something years, that somehow the city did receive some benefit from.
certainly,
Okay, all
certainly.
right, thank you. I'm good.
Okay. So then, let me just back up, because where we ended then was in March 2021 when the city began collecting the membership fees. Fast forward then to November 10th of 2021, the commission received a report and discussed the city sailing program. So up until that point, the commission received a historical report that provided all of the history that I very briefly went over, but was provided to you in your admin report. I did include the report that was provided to the commission on November 10th. And so that was included. So you had all of that background and more detailed information. There was a secondary meeting held that following month because the commission had some additional information that requested that staff return and provide to you all. And so at that December 8th meeting, the commission provided a recommendation to the city council, and I'm gonna read it here so everyone is aware of exactly what was recommended. That the city council provide direction to staff to correct any non-compliance with the Portofino lease agreement for the slips at the Portofino Marina, and that the city should partner with a nonprofit sailing group to utilize the slips at the Portofino Marina and to also assist with the co-programming of sailing activities through the city. And I'm going to go into, on a later slide, the nuances with the Portofino slips, just to remind you all of that. But after those two discussions, this is what the commission provided a formal recommendation to the city council after you all reviewed and analyzed the topic. On March 15th, 2022, staff returned with the commission's recommendation with a similar report and with some added details outlining the commission's discussion, presented all of that to the city council, where the city council provided the following formal motion to staff. And it was in several parts. So the first is to solicit and select a nonprofit organization through an interview or request for proposals process to administer activities related to the sailing club, to donate the 2 14-foot boats utilizing slips in the Portofino Marina, retain the 2 slips in the Portofino Marina for the select nonprofit organization's use, and to begin discussions with Los Angeles County Supervisor Mitchell regarding sailing programs that could be complementary or supplemental to the city's existing program. And then just a little side note, Mayor Brand volunteered to make this outreach. And so following that direction from the city council, in August of last year, staff did reach out to nonprofit sailing organizations to inform them of the city's outreach and requesting proposals. Just some very high-level details of what that outreach looked like. It included 13 different organizations, including the nonprofit Redondo Beach Sailing Club organization. We wanted to make sure that they knew of the proposal process. The organizations were all based in Southern California, spanning from San Diego to Santa Monica. So staff really did do an exhaustive search of local nonprofit sailing organizations in most of Southern California. And 4 of those 13 organizations were locally based in Redondo Beach. So as part of that outreach, we did request the following components to be included in any of the proposals that we received. So I just wanted to share with you all, I'll just kind of paraphrase these, but I thought it was important that you all knew what was requested of all of the organizations that we're proposing. One was to just give us a high-level view of the organization, its mission, kind of the sailing experience that it has, the personnel, and the nonprofit status of the organization. Of course, because council wanted a nonprofit organization, because that ties into the use of the Portofino Marina slips. Information on the organization's fleet and the sailing vessels and how those can be incorporated into the sailings, into a partnered program. A description of the program offerings for instructional classes and camps. Did not specify ages in there, so we really just were looking for a very holistic look at what programs and activities could be offered. And then opportunities for the organization to provide the membership-based sailing club. So we really were looking for a very comprehensive approach to these proposals. As part of this, we did outline what the city was currently providing with the classes and then the membership component piece to it, so that these organizations knew not only what they could either enhance or change, but what could be built upon with the existing programs. And then September 16th was the deadline for the proposals. And at that time, we had only received two proposals. And then I'm going to provide a general overview of each of the two proposals. And I want to be very careful here too that we're not going to name the organizations that these two proposals are from, since this is purely just an informational item to bring you all up to speed on where we are. This really is not the right time to go into kind of nitpicking the proposals or going into the detail. That was left to staff to really review and then to begin negotiations and bring that recommendation to the city council. So I apologize that it may seem a little mysterious on who they are, but I just want to just let you know that because we're in that discussion period with the organization that we are moving forward with, they would not be named this tonight. So for the first proposal, it included a wide range of options for instructional classes for participants of all ages, and even included family activities with sailing. The classes would focus on STEM learning, which for those that aren't familiar, combines science, technology, engineering, and math components into the activities. There would also be some open house opportunities to really introduce the community to the programs that were being provided. And then would also include some organized harbor cleanups, so even going beyond sailing, but taking care of the waters. The sailing club activities was also included, and with a strong interest to further expand the membership benefits through a coordinated effort with the city. And so there was a strong openness to having a future discussion on what the membership program could look like, what could be offered, but definitely something that was part of the proposal. Just looking at the personnel, they do have a team of certified instructors that could support our current programs as well as additional programs. And then also a willingness and openness to negotiating how the organization would prefer to utilize the two 14-foot vessels and slips in the Portofino Marina. Proposal number 2 outlined an organization that has a proven history of managing a sailing club in partnership with a public agency, which is important. I think, having that experience is certainly a benefit. And it also included the organization's direct management of sailing club activities while solely utilizing the city's vessels. So there was no vessels that the organization would be providing in addition to what the city currently had. So they would solely be relying on what the city has in its inventory. Part of that would also include ownership of the city's two 14-foot boats located in the Portofino Marina. So the city would be donating, as part of the proposal, the two vessels to this organization, and they would maintain and utilize them for sailing club activities.
Question.
Yes.
On the proposal number 1, you kind of, I think there is a difference between the sailing club and sailing classes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, since the city is doing the sailing classes and the previous organization was a sailing club.
Correct.
Okay. Under proposal 1, would that organization come in to either augment or to take place of the city's sailing classes as well?
It would be to augment, to add to.
So which means you would still continually have the city sailing classes, okay, which has a fleet of 7, right?
I believe, yes, I
Right.
believe so.
They still have
Yeah.
that and is working at a loss, but they would augment that as well.
I mean, in theory, as of right now, that's where we're heading. Obviously, negotiations and actual like
Okay.
boots to ground might be
Is the city
different.
open to actually take over the classes, allow this organization to take over the classes and just basically do away with the city's involvement as a instructional type deal?
I can't speak to that at the moment because there's a lot of variables that would,
Right.
make
But
that.
is that, put it this way, in theory, is that a possibility?
At this point, I can tell you nothing is off the table. That doesn't mean that we're willing to just hand it all over, but we're willing to consider all options here. We really want to build a very strong program that enhances the sailing program for the city. So I hesitate to say that
not gonna hold
we're
you to it.
open to it, but I just want to know.
Because my concern would be is that proposal one says that they can take over classes, that they're able to do classes, and the number of classes and actually the number of people that are interested are such that why have extra classes for the city to do it when they can do it?
Well,
And-
their proposals stated that they could support the classes and adds additional. So there's
My
different
understanding is that
opportunities.
The current sailing classes are working at a I think almost $31,000 loss.
I don't have the numbers in front of me this evening. Sorry.
With due respect, we all have questions.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but it's not the time. We should wait until after the presentation's over, or we'll never get through it. So let's let her finish the presentation, and we have questions, and we'll go through and address those questions if that's okay.
So after reviewing both of the proposals, and again, after this was staff driven, so the city council directed staff to administratively ask for these proposals, review them, and then begin negotiating. So once we reviewed both the proposals, proposal number 1 was selected due to the breadth of instructional classes, staff resources, activities, and sailing club offerings that would complement and enhance the city's sailing program. I do just want to note that based on some of the past comments at the last meeting where tonight's discussion was generated, this review did take several months. We're not going to hide behind that. It did take a little bit of time, but that's due to limited staff resources, unexpected projects that took priority, and office closures over the holiday season. And so while this was always on the list of things to accomplish and do, sometimes that list has to be reprioritized, and that the timeline here was a result of that. So staff did begin preliminary discussions with its select organization and was in fact in contact with the organization that the city did not select. So proposal number 2 was informed of staff's decision to select the first proposal in early 2023. Staff did not move forward with beginning any type of discussions with the first proposal until the second proposal was informed of the decision. So I don't want anyone to think that there was any intent there in not informing the other group while we were already moving forward with the select one. And then I just kind of briefly wanted to provide a little bit more information on the Portofino Marina. Again, this is all information you all had before, so hopefully this is just a quick review for you. But the California Coastal Commission granted a conditional approval of a permit for the renovations that took place in 2006 for the Portofino Hotel. And that fell into some of the marina area. And essentially what that conditional approval provided is that the city could utilize 2 slips in the Portofino Marina, but they specifically had to be utilized by a local nonprofit sailing club that promotes public recreational sailing. And I think that language there is specific from the approval letter. So currently, the 2 city-owned 14-foot Catalina sloops are still docked in those slips. They're no longer used for instructional classes or club purposes due to the difficulties in navigating them through the marina. As we provided an update to the commission for several months, last year, I should say, their staff feels that the boats are beyond repair. And I know that there's a difference of opinion with that, but that's staff's recommendation and staff's viewpoint on those 2 boats. And so that fed into a little bit of the city council's recommendation to donate the 2 vessels and potentially the eventual use of the slips or by the nonprofit organization. So essentially the within the motion from the city council was to donate those 2 boats to whomever and then utilize those slips for the nonprofit organization that we go into a partnership agreement with. It is our intent that the use of those slips by that organization is part of that final agreement. We are working towards that as part of that final document. And I believe, so for tonight, again, this is just a receive and file report on the status of the program. As we provided or received direction from the city council, we are moving forward and continuing to process the request of the council in its final motion. So at this point, this item is in staff's hands to continue moving forward consistent with that motion. And so tonight was just an informational item for you all that you had requested because of some comments that were raised at some previous meetings. So I hope this answers some of the questions, fills in some of the gaps that I think some of you guys were trying to figure out at our last meeting and we weren't prepared to answer, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have now.
It sounds to me like there may be some dispute on whether the boats that were left, that were being taken care of, and it seems like because they were no longer being taken care of, they went into disrepair at that point. And
they were deemed to be beyond disrepair at the time that the council made its motion to move forward. So since then, they have not been used, and they hadn't been used, to my knowledge, for a little bit of time before that motion was made. So I can't speak to how long exactly they have not been used, but they were deemed beyond disrepair last year when these discussions were being had. It's not a new type of analysis on those boats because we haven't been utilizing them.
but they're operational at this point, and you said that they would be donated to the.
It could be donated for parts or whatever. Staff's view of them is that they in their current condition could not be used for navigating through the waters.
Are there other questions?
On the first proposal that was selected, you mentioned that they get the same 2 slips. They get the donated boats in the slips for them to either improve or to discard, I guess.
Potentially, yes. Yeah.
And you mentioned that they have other vessels.
They do have vessels in their own inventory, yes.
How many vessels do they have?
I don't have the proposal this night, so I
Will
don't.
they require more than 2 slips?
To be honest, we haven't gone into that level of negotiating with them just yet.
Okay, I was just curious because,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm just trying to kind of work my way through this here. Hypothetically, if the staff had deemed those 2 vessels fine, would that have made a different, like, would that have made them happy?
Made the sailing club?
Yeah, like, would that have solved the problem?
No,
So that's just one issue.
I mean, I don't want to speak on their
Area of
behalf,
dispute then?
but my understanding is their main concern is that staff reached out to them and told them they could no longer collect the membership fees. And that generated then usage of the vessels and all of that.
And just to clarify, just because I've been on the commission for a while and there's been a lot of turnover,
Yeah.
that occurred in 2020 as per your timeline, before you were here, before your, what is his name?
Cameron.
We've seen him like once. Yeah. Before his time, right?
Correct. It was the previous director.
It was the previous director.
Correct. And that's why we can't speak to why, unfortunately.
Of course, because the first thought that I had, and then you guys can, and I don't really have much more to say about this after this. reading this whole thing the past week, revisiting it, I guess the overarching sort of comment that I have on it is that, I've just seen this play out so many times in the city where there has been sort of an informal agreement, a lack of an MOU, a lack of something like this, and then, new people come in that are usually way more experienced, way more professional come in. And then, it's just, I feel bad for everybody involved. I feel bad for you. I feel bad because this certainly wasn't your, it wasn't the current Rec and Parks, Community Services Department that sort of like did that. And then before didn't have a written agreement. I just feel bad for all parties because there was a lack of a formal agreement, which is really kind of the crux of the problem, right? When things aren't in writing and when there's like a years-long informal agreement about something, then later on when a new administration, new people take over, there can be a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of issues and a lot of problems as a result. So that's just sort of my kind of like my larger picture, kind of looking through this and just seeing so many different things in the city like this. And I feel like we're sort of moving in the right direction now with our new staff. And, I just wish there was a way to make everybody happy. And there oftentimes isn't. I'd be curious to hear and really like navigate through, I guess my thing is, was there non-compliance with something? Is there something shady going on? I'm always kind of like trying to figure that out. And I don't see anything. I can't see anything, at least not done under anybody that currently works here. So, I don't really have any further questions just because I don't know what the current staff now does because they're just doing their job. And we can't go back, 4 years and undo what was done, right? So I don't know how to proceed. I think we have the information that you have. I don't feel like anything's being hidden from us. So I mean, what other questions are there, I guess, from the other commissioners? I'm curious because I don't know what to ask at this point, I guess is.
No,
I think for us, it's a receive and file and it's more informational. What has happened is kind of out of our control, especially that it's coming from the city council in that regard. Where it is now, we can influence how the negotiations may go and maybe add advice as to things that might be important, but with not knowing more details about the why, that was a question I was going to ask is, why did they take over the fees of an organization that was taking the fees? That's, to me, that bankrupts that organization, I would think. And
right, like why all of a sudden, right? Yeah, why all of a
how are
sudden,
they expected to take care of the boats after you just took all their fees?
right?
But I would say you hit it on the head there with the bigger reality is we have nonprofit organizations in the city that don't have in writing specific agreements with the city. And I think this should be, the canary in the coal mine for other organizations in the city that may not have concrete language to protect them and the city as to what the roles are. And I would recommend further, at least I'm off now, but at the end of the meeting, to refer to staff to pursue agreements with all organizations, maybe to review to make sure you have written agreements with these organizations for these types of situations. But
Right, because I feel like this comes up, at least a few times this has come up since I've been around. And I feel like it just leads to problems later on. So I would completely agree with Commissioner McCauley. And I mean, obviously, yeah, it does the question really is why all of a sudden, did the city, after so many years of an informal agreement, decide to take those fees?
Can we subpoena the emails?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the question of the entire,
I was here 4 years ago. I was on the commission. I remember these meetings when we initially talked about it, and our recommendation. I was part of that recommendation that was made. And, as a commission, we did our part. It came across our table. And as you can see in the suggestion to the city, those things were listened to. The city then took it to council, worked through the process, and as we've seen through the presentation of what happened at that point. Later, when this came back to us, to the commission, it was kind of already beyond, we've already done our work on it. We had questions though, because we're new here, but really it came to the city's understanding that there wasn't an MOU. Other organizations went through that as well and had to come forward to have new agreements put together. And unfortunately, the organization that had been focused for so long wasn't selected in the process. Again, that's out of our control as a commission. That's not our job. That's city staff that's hired by the city that works for the city council. And so I think from this, it's difficult for us to feel as if we're weighing in as judges, because we're not. But so this agenda item is for us, just to understand better, but not really to make any decisions. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I do understand when you say that it's not for us to make decisions. But I disagree with you when they say that there's nothing we can do. Okay?
Well, just with this is already,
No, it's not.
I mean, where it is,
No.
can we undo the staff?
No, I'm not saying undo anything, but I'm saying that as a board or as an individuals, that we ask questions.
I agree.
Because the thing is that's what we can do. Because what happens, whether it's however the previous administration or staff or how this is placed, when you slow this down, this whole issue, slow it down and go step by step via timeline, you kind of see where things are at and where it's disjointed. And I think we had, again, like I brought up before, we had several different, I believe, issues with this, okay? And again, when I kind of looked at this a little more as to why suddenly the city wanted to take money from this organization that it was, I don't believe, entitled to from the membership, because there was no agreement to it. They're not a vendor. They have no contractual agreement to give them any money, but it was done. I take that part, okay? As far as the MOU, the city is well aware that we have no, if any, MOUs with any organization within this city. I brought it up many times to several of the council people. Working at the dog park, we have no MOU. And again, the MOUs are in place ideally to lay out what is the responsibility of both of the people that are there. Sometimes it's to the detriment of mostly for the nonprofit organization, because they're sometimes held to a standard that either they cannot afford or they cannot achieve. I get that. But I think with this one here, that some of the questions that we still can hang on to, is that when the negotiations do go forward, is it whether it's fair and equitable to the city and also the organization that they select, okay? No matter who it is. And I think that's part of it that can still do it, because yes, we do pay staff, have them do stuff over there. And again, I get it that anytime a whole new board person comes in, it's always, they have a new way of doing it, their way is better. And I do get the staff is professional in what they're doing, but they still has to be oversight. Because if there's not oversight, there's no reason for us to be here. That's what I believe our job is, to question and and most importantly, to support them when they do it right, and sometimes to question it sometimes when it's not. Okay, so I would then say is that as they go forward with these negotiations, that it comes back so we can look at that to determine that in fact what we're looking at. Because again, my understanding is this, is that the current classes that are going on, that the city is putting on, is it generally the average total is $74,000 to run it. Okay, they're only making 48, if that. It's at a $30,000 loss. Does it benefit the city? Possibly, by what it does. Again, I understand that as a city, that we are going to take losses on things if it does benefit the health, morale, and welfare of the people who live here. Okay, but if it's at a major loss, why are we in the business of having the class? We have no other classes whatsoever in this city where the city actually runs the program. Tennis guy, vendor. Okay, the pickleball, vendor. But again, I think part of this as well as understanding is, are we getting a benefit from the city? And then the previous, I would say that the previous arrangement did benefit the city. But I still say is that what we end up doing is looking at this, that if the staff has come up with somebody viable, that we look at that and then look at the minutia of it sometimes to do that, once they're done, and determine that. My question to you would be is, whoever the new person is, would they be open to a partnership with other type of sailing organizations as well, to augment them?
That I can't speak to.
I'm just saying is that
Yeah.
if you could take that back to ask that if, for example, another organization says, hey, look, let us partner together. Okay, you can handle one side, we can handle this, and we can do that. And then that way together, that we have people hopefully that are going to be happy. I think that's one way of making everybody happy. like
So
you said.
Commissioner Escondidas, if I could interrupt,
Yes.
we were directed also, Mayor Brand is going to reach out to the county. So that was
Yes.
an additional agreement that we might have. So then
Right.
there is going to be another collaboration.
Okay.
So just, and then
But
I did want to correct something that you said. The city does host classes that we run. So we have a preschool class.
I'm sorry,
We-
which one? What
We
class?
have a preschool class that runs at a Perry Park Senior Center.
Okay.
All of our classes from our senior programming, we have staff that actually lead those classes. And we do have our after-school program that's programming that is staff-led.
I stand corrected.
Okay,
My
thank you.
apologies. But other than those, then some of the more recreational activities, I'll put it to you that way. Okay. But I still stand corrected with that, and thank you. Okay. What I would say is that if, again, but that specific direction from it was to reach out to the county, which is another entity. But I'm saying is that another nonprofit, another organization, that if, hopefully that they're open to that.
The final model for this can look so many different ways from where we're sitting
understand
today.
that.
So yeah, we could end up with 4 different agreements that all complement each other into one cohesive program.
With one nonprofit
Correct.
organization.
As of right now, our goal is to begin negotiations with this one organization and see where it goes from there. If there's components that we feel confident they can provide and other components that we're both at the table like, I don't know, maybe we should bring another organization to fill this gap, we're open to that discussion.
That's what my concern is, again, is that we are open more to other aspects and other avenues to be able to go down, as opposed to being lockstep of, no, we're just, we're going to do it this way and it's our way.
We are. Our
Thank you.
priority, though, is to begin discussing with this one group initially.
Thank you.
I guess I just, we have some members here this evening. And I guess what I want to know is, aside from the issues that occurred before your time that can't be addressed at this point, and the controversy over the 2 vessels, what is the issue, the main issue or the main grievance at this point, I guess?
Yeah, I was going to recommend, unless there's any other larger questions for staff, if we can open up to public comments, I think that would be a really great opportunity for them to answer that directly. Do you want to open?
Yeah, do I need to make a motion or
No,
just?
we can just open it up for
Okay,
public comment. I
yes.
don't know if we have any cards first, and then we can go to. That's okay. You can still speak without a card. I just didn't know who has priority. Yeah.
Okay. Mike Martin, District 1, President of Redondo Beach Sailing Club, which was the proposal that was not selected. This thing is directional. Just to identify that organization. So a lot of comments. Procedurally, it would be nice if we saw these PowerPoint presentations before this meeting, because almost every slide had some sort of factual inaccuracy. It's hard to rebut them in real time. Although I'm willing to sit here and take as long as you want. And unlike some people, I actually was here back when all this stuff happened, and I do have some of the history as to what the stated reasons were for getting rid of the Redondo Beach Sailing Club. And I guess my first comment is, you know, the agreement with the Coastal Commission, it's a specific set of words. You don't get to rewrite them. You don't get to interpret them. They're in the agreement, they're in the lease, and they're not what you saw on that slide. It says, lessee shall reserve 2 slips within the marina for exclusive use by a nonprofit equal opportunity sailing club deemed acceptable by the executive director of the Coastal Commission in consultation with the city of Redondo Beach that promotes public recreational sailing. All right, Redondo Beach is not a nonprofit, it's a chartered municipal corporation, so they don't qualify there. The Coastal Commission, I did a public records request. They have no record of anybody ever approaching them for any sort of approval. So it's prima facie violation from day one of the Coastal Commission agreement. And public recreational sailing, if you can explain to me, this is the 4th sailing season in a row where those small boats have sat untended in slips over at Portofino, totally unused. Nobody else with boats around there can figure out the sanity of this. So aside from just being totally out of compliance and apparently not caring, there's a common sense here as to who benefits from just letting those boats rot away. And frankly, I think they can be brought back to life. But yes, they've had 3.5 years of no maintenance. Before that, the sailing club was maintaining them 100%, our sweat equity, our materials. You couldn't afford to do that, by the way, at the labor rates that the boatyard charges. So it's not like we weren't doing anything. The club was doing things, but we admittedly didn't have an MOU, nor were we ever asked, because since 1973, it was clear to everybody what the role was and what everybody was doing. Nobody felt a need for that. So should have been asked in the first place. Let's see. Well, I'm tempted to go through this slide by slide and rebut some of the things in there, but let me just pick on one thing. The Redondo Beach Sailing Club dues, the main use of those dues was liability insurance to the level that the city risk manager dictated, which is pretty much the same sort of thing as your vendors. So there was 3 different liability policies of, I think, $1 million a piece. That just covered everything with the city as secondary insured and everybody signing liability waivers, the whole bit. We were covered. So you got to ask yourself, for the pitiful revenues that the city so craved, on a net basis, how do you come out ahead by taking an arm's length organization where your liability is over here and then transitioning it to what I think is a self-insured kind of operation, going from something run by volunteers to something that's run by paid city staff? That's not clear to me that the city netted positive on that. I think it might be another money-losing operation.
Would the commission like to extend time?
Request an extension.
Second.
My second observation is if you go to the staff report, the one that is posted as opposed to this, which may or may not someday be posted, they don't always end up that way. The direction was to solicit and select a nonprofit organization through interview or RFP to administer activities relating to the sailing club. Those are the words, okay? And what you saw after that was staff going off in like a totally different direction. Now you can argue as to whether that's really what the city council wanted, because I sat through that whole meeting. I think, you know, what they really wanted was something a little bit different. But if you look at the staff report, the stated marching orders up front do not match to the activities described in the back. So what's with that? I don't get it. Other than that, lots of factual inaccuracies. If the city is still running sailing camps for kids it somehow escaped my attention. The last one I saw was pre-COVID. After that, there was none. And the ones that were pre-COVID were not run by city instructors. They were subcontracted to South Bay Sailing. And I've been watching, the rec department camps and activities listings as they've come out over the years. And I haven't seen any kid camp for sailing, ever. Not in the last 4 years. And I've never seen it run by city staff. So I don't know what's with that. I guess the other thing is that although the only thing that staff might know about is that the sailing club used city boats. In fact, we charter boats and we use members' boats. There was more activity going on than just city boats. It's just we never felt any particular reason to report on that, nor were we ever asked. I'm starting to get into the details here. I could go through and find you factual errors on every single slide. I don't think it's good to come to this organization or to go to city council with slides that have factual errors in them. And it's easy to fix. It's just not been pursued. Or to the extent it was pursued in the last round of meetings with this group a year and a half ago, the comments got ignored when things were pointed out. And really, that's pretty much all I have to say. In my view, I would be perfectly happy if the sailing club could go back and just use those 2 slips and those 2 boats, which I think we can fix up, and just sever what's been deemed a non-existent relationship with the city.
So sorry. So, because, we've been working not jointly, but, years ago, you guys gave me personally a tour of everything so that I could better understand. So at this point, after it's gone through so many hoops, and we've asked so many questions, I guess that would be my ultimate question is just like, now, given everything that's happened and all the things that we have control of, like, what would you want ideally moving forward at this point? Is that the last part of what you said?
I would like the city, basically I like Portofino to actually execute the portion of their lease agreement that has this coastal commission agreement embedded in it. I'd like Waterfront and Economic Development to make sure that their tenant abides by the lease. And I would like the city to stop exploiting this conflict of interest that let another city department walk in violation of this agreement, while Waterfront and Economic Development turns a blind eye to a conflict of interest that rather than avoiding every appearance of conflict of interest, which is the rule I've always had to abide by, instead that conflict of interest was exploited to the benefit of another city department that had no right to it. And it continues to this day as a total abomination because they don't want the slips, they don't want the boats, but they'd rather let the whole thing rot year after year after year instead of letting the residents of Redondo Beach, the taxpayers, go use their stuff.
Other than the
It's a
slip,
travesty.
I think the question was, other than the slips.
Yeah.
Okay, what would you see your organization to at least something reasonable that you would like to see with the city?
Is it the last part of what you said, that you would like the 2 vessels, right? That's what you're saying? And then to sever the ties with the city?
If the club could have the slips, which would satisfy the Coastal Commission agreement, then I don't care whether the boats get donated or not. I don't know what anybody would do with them otherwise. Monetary value is almost nothing, and you'd have to find a way to get them out of the water and haul them away.
So you're saying, though, that your organization be allowed,
If we had those,
to be allowed to utilize those 2 slips per the agreement, and that you enter some MOA to rather now or with, or that will be that with or without city.
we don't, I would like the slips to be assigned to Redondo Beach Sailing Club
Okay.
as the nonprofit.
Okay, you're not looking in any way of utilizing the city's boats at all?
No,
Any of
that, if the city wants to negotiate a separate agreement for that, which would be, by the way, to the benefit of the residents, that's fine. But at a minimum, if the club could be assigned those slips to satisfy the Coastal Commission agreement, we can take it from there.
I think the question was, did they say they need to be utilized, or did it say they have to reserve exclusively?
It says exclusive.
Okay, but the question would be, would you have to pay for that?
No, it says free.
Okay,
Look at that, I mean, the city has to abide by the entire
Okay, yeah.
agreement as written, word for word, not a
Right.
rewritten version. And it's not.
okay, but that would make you happy.
Yes.
Or it would be something where you would believe is equitable.
That would return the Redondo Beach Sailing Club Incorporated back to something reasonably close to the original status quo, and we'd go find our own big boats.
That's
Not a
cool.
problem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I quit bugging you.
Thank you. No, I mean, thank you for speaking.
Thank you.
A little shorter. How do I get this down? Okay. Julie Call, active sailor out of this harbor for 20 years, member of King Harbor Yacht Club, founding member and executive director of Waterfront Education. I know a lot about this harbor. I know a lot about the sailing that happens. I know a lot about the teaching. I will have to tell you, I am very angry that I'm here tonight because I'm not out racing, which is what I love to do on Wednesdays. But this is a very important topic for our city and for all of our citizens. We are a small harbor, which is amazing because we get to teach in an environment that gives kids and adults an opportunity to get out on the ocean in 5 minutes or less. I don't know how many of you are in other harbors, but this is a very rare thing. There's only one other harbor, it's Carlsbad, that has the same opportunity for us to get people on the water. Kids or adults, it doesn't matter. To give you some perspective, Marina Del Rey, it's 45 minutes to the ocean. If you go down to Long Beach, at least half an hour. We are 5 minutes. That is amazing. So when we talk about sailing, whether it's a club or whether it's what we do, which is, getting kids and adults on the water in a nonprofit way, the thing that we should talk about is access. We have the best access to the ocean. We have the best teaching environment. So for me, I feel like we need to embrace this. We have not embraced this as a harbor in a very long time. And the gentleman just spoke, he's right. When we talk about adults getting on the water versus kids, South Bay Sailing was the last organization to get kids on the water. And it was about 5 years ago. And I know because I partner with them. I partner with a lot of people in this harbor. So as we look to where we should go next, and I hear a lot of things about boats and some, I'm going to tell you right now, maintaining boats is expensive. Having slips is expensive. And the gentleman who spoke before me, he's correct. The Harbor Commission, it should be nonprofits who are in that slip. But let's talk about where we go as a city forward. I think we take a look at not like a club, not as a nonprofit, but let's talk about community boating and what that really means in Southern California. And not only Southern California, but community boating almost doesn't exist in Southern California. If you take a look at community boating on the East Coast, it is huge. I mean, there's access for adults, kids, like people that come from disadvantaged financial situations. We don't have that here. One of the things that I would like to see, and I think there's a trend going towards educating not only on the water, but off the water, or continue. We're talking about the Waterfront Education Center that we're all hoping is going to get built. So I think that there's room for us all to work together.
Permission to,
Motion to extend our time?
Is it okay? Sorry.
No, hold on. A motion to extend our time?
Yes, second.
And I don't know you guys, and you don't know my program, but if you look at Waterfront Education, we've been educating out of this harbor for a decade. We work mostly with homeschoolers.
We are starting to work more with adults. But the thing is, we need to embrace who we are as a harbor. You know, every time I try to do a program and I try to be like Marina Del Rey or I try to be like Long Beach, it doesn't work because we're a small harbor. So I think there's room for all of us. I mean, whether it's adults, there's a progression. You have to get a kid who's 5 years old, let them catch a fish. They get excited. Then you get them on the water, on a stand-up paddleboard. And then you get them in a sailboat and they get excited. Then they get out on the ocean and they get confidence. These are your future citizens. These are the kids who fall in love with the ocean and they are willing to pay the prices to live here next to the ocean. So I guess as I sit here and I'm feeling angry because I'm not on the ocean, but I feel blessed that you guys are all here looking at Parks and Rec and we're working with the city and everything. There's room for all of us. You know, a club, an adult club business model is very different than a nonprofit teaching model. And the big difference is we can go out and we can get grant money. We can like pay for those boats. We can pay for the slip. Doesn't mean that there's not room for these guys here because here's the progression. The kids fall in love. And even if they're an adult that falls in love, they need to have access. So if you don't own a boat, how do you get access, right? If you're not a yacht club member and you don't own a boat, you have to have a progression. I don't care if it's a sailboat or if it's stand-up paddleboard or if it's a kayak. I know this city does not want to hear this, but massive dried storage is critical because we don't have any community boating. So how do you get those people who can't quite afford the yacht club or can't quite afford a boat, but they fall in love with the ocean? You know, you got to follow the progression. So as I sit here tonight and we're talking about the sailing program, I would say that there's a kids sailing program. My understanding is the city is doing a good job with their adult sailing program. I know most of your instructors. The thing is, let's make access the component that we embrace because it doesn't matter if you're a kid or an adult. We need to give access to the ocean because that's what we do best. And I sit in these meetings and we forget that we're unique in that aspect of we're the first connection that a lot of these kids have or the adults have. We are a harbor that is not intimidating. We don't have we don't have tankers. We don't have all the commercial traffic that happens in Marina Del Rey. We have, I don't know, stand-up paddleboards. We have like a few other things. So, I love this city. I love this town. This is my harbor. I sail out of it almost, not every day, but probably 6 out of 7 days. And so as we look to the future of what we want to be as a harbor and a parks and recreation, let's create a transition. Let's create from 5 years old to 95 years old. And that leaves room for beginning classes, kids, and adults. Let me tell you, a 5-year-old kid is just as scared as a 30-year-old woman who has never been on the ocean. So let's embrace all of it. And I don't know. So I'm here, and if any one of you want to get out on the ocean, I will help you do that. We have boats, we have kayaks, we have stand-up paddleboards, and let's be the best harbor we can be, because you know what? There's a gap right now in education and in boating. We have all these established harbors that are missing, I don't want to say the boat because that's a pun, but they're missing the opportunity right now to stand up and be different. Let's not have a maritime museum. Let's not have some of these other things. Let's be like, we'll give you your start. Because if we give you your start, you're going to come back to us time and time again. And isn't that what we really want? We want people to get their start here and say, you know what? This is the best harbor. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to live here. I'm going to bring my friends here. I'm going to keep my boat here. And I'm going to fall in love with the ocean in Redondo Beach. So anyway, Julie Call, crazy sailing girl, sailing mermaid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioner, staff. Mark Hansen, longtime King Harbor boater. I've been sailing out of King Harbor for 63 years now. Had to wait for our family slip to be built so that we could move in and go boating here. Also proud member of the King Harbor Public Amenities Working Group. Just spent a year trying to figure out what amenities we should have in the city. I want to touch on a couple admin and technical stuff first and then get into some actual recommendations. I really was surprised at the admin report, keeping it a secret who the two proposals were from, also keeping it a secret who we outreach to. I've never seen a city council or harbor commission admin report that looked anything like that. I mean, there's just no transparency there. And how does the community help you guys, okay? I'm very involved regionally with boating, know lots of the organizations up and down the coastline. You know, if the list was there, I could have looked in and said, wow, you missed so-and-so you want to talk to, but I can't help you with that if you keep it a secret who we're outreaching to. Second item, and Mr. Martin touched on it, the admin report in the city council minutes refer to administering activities of the sailing club, okay? My guess is that I didn't go back to check the city council tapes, but I think they were talking about both the instructional program and the club. So I don't think, and Mike acknowledged that, we probably don't want to get too hung up on somebody type the word club and not instructional. Third item, also in the city council minutes, there's a reference to 14-foot slips. By now, I think you guys all have a grasp, but that's wrong. It's two 14-foot boats. They're in slips that are about 30 feet long. Fourth item, in the admin report, it says that the club provided no revenue to support the club activities. I think that one's just false. After they spent their money on insurance, but, my understanding was they were going to the marine store and buying stuff to work on these boats. So not just sweat labor, but also a little financial assistance there. I want to get into just a couple mechanical things. One is the condition of the 14-foot boats being referred to as derelict and not fixable. And the instructors I've talked to just completely disagree with that. Now, why they got ignored for the last few years, I don't know. I've got to assume somebody in the management change decided they didn't care about the centerboard boats and only wanted to care about the keel boats. And as a guy who's given lessons to, many people over the years, I love giving lessons in centerboard boats. Keel boats have so much momentum when you make a small change on the sails. It takes a while for you to see it. Centerboard boat happens right now. So I love centerboard boats for teaching, but somebody in the management chain apparently decided they didn't like the centerboard boats, and I've heard instructors complain about that. Also, and I mentioned this to you last time I spoke before you, the contention that somehow those slips don't have value because they're too difficult to sail out of is just utter nonsense, okay? I was recently with one of the past instructors who's perhaps one of the best sailors the city's ever had. He's out winning trophies up and down the coastline. And when I mentioned that to him, he just rolled his eyes and he says, utter nonsense. So I don't know what the motivation was to try to downplay the value of those slips, okay? But just because you have to sail in across the wind, okay, if you're a decent instructor, that should not be a big deal. So finally, I want to get down to a recommendation for you this evening. I was very disappointed the way the admin report was laid out and apparently how staff has been proceeding with this kind of either or that we're doing. We either have one of these two fine folks run both programs. I think by now you're getting your arms around this, that Julie Call knows how to manage sailing instructors. Mike Martin knows how to run a sailing club, different expertise. They know each other. We have lunches together, okay? And I think clearly the logic is that we need them each to do the part that they're really, really good at. Now, how you structure that, you could have them separate. You could have Julie as an umbrella organization with the club under her. But, and I think, so that's my big recommendation to you guys tonight, is to support using both of their talent sets, however we decide to structure that. And for the chair, I'll disagree with you on one thing this evening, that, it wasn't a place for you guys tonight or a role. And I say absolute nonsense, okay? Why have commissions if you're just going to receive and file reports? No, your job is to give the best advice you possibly can to the city council. And if now, after several of these meetings and all the knowledge you're getting here, if you happen to concur with my recommendation that you use both of them to run the parts they're experts at, make that recommendation this evening and send that over to city council and do your job to avail them of all the hard work and research you've done up to now. Hope that's helpful. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mark, was there a suggested motion at the end of that? Or as far as?
Yeah, I can take a quick stab at it. It could be something to the effect of the Recreation and Parks Commission recommends to city council and city staff that they avail themselves of the expertise of both Julie Call's program and Mike Martin's programs and operate those either in parallel or as a combined program.
Yeah.
Is this number one and number two?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was just unclear.
It was not
definitely
clear
from
until
I know,
3 minutes
we were
ago for
keeping a
me.
secret up
Maybe
until
I'm
We all
slow,
thought you were
but
all in the same.
And ideally, it wasn't my place to point that out.
And in full disclosure, I helped Julie Call form Waterfront Education many years ago. I still serve on her advisory board, but I spend many hours talking about these issues over lunch with both of them, both wonderful, great people, and I think you should use them both. So,
Again, I think that's why my recommendation to her initially was that would they be open to utilize a partnership with other nonprofits? That was where I was going with this as well. But he actually clarified it a lot better than I did. Okay, in addition to the county. So,
Thanks, Mark.
thank you.
It's difficult for us not being professionals in this world of sailing at all to really know how to recommend. And so when it goes to city council, we're from this commission, we put forward our recommendations as we see fit, hoping that conversation continues at city council where the decision can actually be made. So at this point, what you said before is that right now everything's in the hand of city staff. Is that right? The city council already made their suggestions, and now city staff has been working to move forward with the nonprofit that was selected, whose name was not ever mentioned.
But I don't think that precludes us. Does not preclude us.
Exactly. So what I'm saying at this point, do we want it to go back to city council? And with the suggestion that it's not an either or type scenario, that there's more than enough for everybody to come and work together. Wouldn't that just be the organization number 2 who is not selected coming up with a proposal for any amenities that aren't being well utilized, and then presenting that to the city at that point?
Yeah, Chair, if I may speak to that and maybe offer a suggestion on that. At this time, we're moving in the direction that City Council gave us, which is to issue this proposal, issue the request for proposals, receive them, review them, and then begin negotiating an agreement. So at this time, it's not really, we're in the middle of that process, and to circumvent that and to say, go back to council and in theory, almost negate those 2 proposals that we received and almost start again with a separate kind of a discussion, because those proposals were submitted under the pretense that they were submitting proposals to individually enhance the city's programs. But my recommendation is, if the commission feels strongly that we should consider having either a dual agreement or two completely independent agreements or whatever that looks like, we can seek the input of the commission this evening on how we proceed with our select proposal organization. If that's to see if there is an interest in partnering with another organization, or if they personally don't even want to do the sailing club component, then we as staff with that knowledge can then go back and say, okay, what do we do at this point? We need to fill this gap. What are we then going to recommend to the city council? And so that's where your input tonight is going to help guide us in that direction. So you can't provide a motion for us on how to proceed here, but we're looking for input on how we can move forward negotiating with the two proposals that we currently have, knowing that we are going to continue moving forward negotiating with the select organization, which is what the city council directed us to do. So that would be my recommendation tonight, is just to provide us some input on how we move forward with the negotiations. Again, it's just purely input at this point, because this really is supposed to just be a receive and file item. But if there is high level input that we can respond to, we will certainly do that as we move along in the process.
Well, it seems like the debate has always been to find one organization that solves that does everything. And what we're identifying tonight is that that's not what's happening. If you select one over the other, then there's going to be aspects that go unaddressed of what we need in the harbor. And so to find a reason to play together or to work together, it makes sense in my mind if there's something that's not being addressed. If there's something that's being left by the wayside by restructuring the program that's been in place for 20 years, and now the slips aren't going to be used or something like that. But if there is something that's going to be left, lingering like that, then it seems like we should be open to coming to a different agreement.
Yes, and I agree. And I just want to, and I'll turn it back over to you. I don't mean to keep jumping in, but I just want to kind of help guide the conversation. Is we have not formally gone to the negotiating table with our select organization. So we as staff, I can't sit up here and say whether or not that select organization will give us a gap in any of our programs or club activities. And so, or even if they want to, the proposal outline said that they would be open to discussing that and developing some sort of program in partnership with the city. What that looks like, we certainly don't know at this point. So that's all I'm saying, is we have a commitment to continue negotiating with that select organization and to see what they can provide, what components they can provide. And then from there, as staff, if there are gaps that we feel that the community desires and the commission really wants us to move forward with, we will do our due diligence to try and fill that gap the best way we deem possible. But I think it's very important that we continue moving forward in the process that the city council directed us to do, while seeking input from the commission tonight when it can fit in properly.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the issue that we have here is that we have to acknowledge as well as agree that the fact that the proposal number one was selected. And I believe we have to honor that, whether we like or however we do that. But I think the word would then be not necessarily direction, but a very strong recommendation or the suggestion that the negotiations include the possibility of the structuring of that the primary organization be allowed and encouraged, that if need be, based on, obviously under their leadership, to be able to bring in other nonprofits or other organizations to assist and to augment them. And that way it kind of says this way, so when they go for a negotiation, you say, are you willing to do this? And if she says, or if they say no, then sometimes we ask, well, why not? Or if they say yes, great, who would you like to work with? Okay, rather than for us to suggest that, again, I don't believe it would be appropriate, unfortunately, that we say, proposal one, you have to work with proposal two. Okay, I think it should be because we've given, or they have selected proposal one, that they be allowed to do that, because they're going to also have to bring in the county, and they're going to have to be able to balance two or three, possibly two or three different organizations. And again, it has to be under their leadership and how they want to structure it, how they want to run it. But again, a strong recommendation that when there's negotiations come in, that is a recommendation, and that if we can go in that direction, that I think would be helpful.
I mean, just, upon unraveling this a bit, it appears that number one and number two are friends.
Sure.
So, which we would have never known had we not, explored this further. So I think that, this kind of leaves an opening. It's not
Right.
what I thought upon
Right.
first.
I think we can trust them to
The issue is that there wasn't an agreement and that it was.
I think that's
This
a whole
is-
separate
But
issue.
at this point, what I'm saying is that whoever ends up with that agreement with the city that has a new MOU, whoever they're contracting with to complete services, it falls under that agreement unless the other organization gets their own MOU with the city as well. So an example of this would be the Redondo Beach Bluff restoration effort that was led by Fish and Wildlife and LA Conservation Corps for years. And that transitioned to South Bay Parkland Conservancy having the agreement, for instance, coming in as a nonprofit organization that then at that point contracted LACC again. It's not like they're gone from the project, but now they're in a role that's better suited. And so they're still on the bluffs working with South Bay Parkland Conservancy, and the funding, which is being managed underneath that 501c3, which is very necessary to have a local group that understands the community and so forth versus someone that's coming from outside. In this case, we're all here, friends working long time in the harbor. So is this, sounds like everybody's on the discussion table together. It seems like no one's being excluded.
But the MOU will codify that, indicating that they are allowed to do that, as opposed to later on, somebody said, well, we negotiated with you. We didn't say you can farm 5 of these things out. And then now we're back where we are before. I think it's important that they say that if they go to proposal 1 and say, you may have an additional one, but we would like it to be a local person, however way you want to structure it, or that way it makes it a little cleaner. Again, when we start looking at the way the contractual agreements or the agreements are, and we want to make it as clear as we can and make it easier for everybody involved in this so that there's no disputes later on. So I think I would say, I would make if you'd like, I would make a motion that we send a recommendation to staff that upon negotiation, that they approach the proposal 1 person and then first determine if they are open to working with additional local nonprofits in order to fulfill their agreement as well as their mission in the harbor. Now, again, to sit there and say that like you said before, it was the question is, well, do we give him the 2 slips? Well, then we're going to have to ask proposal 1, what slips are you going to use now? And so I think it's sometimes up to, unfortunately, the proposal number 1 to determine how those slips are going to be utilized, because they're a nonprofit as well. So does that make sense as far as a motion?
Sounds like to us that, we want to see how we can all play together if there's room for that. And it seems like everybody who's making decisions is here in the room right now for the most part. And so we're not making a motion, but a recommendation. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's purely just providing input for us as we begin negotiating. And so I do have that. So tonight I do need a formal motion to receive and file, but obviously all of the input and comments tonight will be part of our consideration as we begin negotiating.
Okay,
For the motion on file before that, I'm curious as to the reason why is it proposal 1 and proposal 2? Is that because of any legal reason, we were not allowed to know this?
Why we didn't name the individuals, it's because we're in the middle of negotiations.
Okay, so
Typically,
protect the confidentiality of negotiations? is why?
yeah. So unfortunately, that kind of went a little wayside tonight. But at the time that we bring that formal agreement to the city council to review and to approve, at that time, we would, of course, in the staff report, include more information on who the outreach was to, who submitted proposals and all of that. So this is a bit of an odd item. So I will certainly, agree that the report did look a little bit different in that sense, just because this is just an update to you all on where we are, and we're in the middle of a process. So,
And one other question in regards to what proposal 2 speaker pointed out, the language of the lease. Is it, regardless of what happens here, there will be approval or needed approval from the Coastal Commission as well? Do we know if that's?
the city will comply with the
whatever's in the
language in there as part of this, either this agreement or a subsequent agreement or however, but as we wrap up this whole sailing program and enhancements to the program, the slips issue will be part of that and rectified as part of that.
More than likely, the proposal, one person will have to make the application to the coastal commission
Either one, yeah.
and go that way.
But he had suggested that was the language.
Right.
That's all. So, okay, so I'll make a motion to receive and file.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I mean, just as I think there's space here to make everybody happy to a certain extent. And I think that everything should be, this has been going on for a long time. I think that,
It would be
would be-
unfortunate to cut somebody out, especially after so many years of experience and involvement in the harbor.
right, if possible, it would be.
I think it seemed to us that it was in either between some brand new group who we don't even know who they are versus the group that's been here for 20 years doing everything. And so that alone, I think, helped clarify what's happening.
Thank you for coming.
Yep, thank you.
I know, it's more than we have sometimes.
And we appreciate your passion. It's very important. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, we have some diehard online participation. It's our big audience is online. No, I don't know how to verify that or not. But moving back to the agenda, I'm having some, here we are. That was J1. So moving on to item J2 is Commission Subcommittee Review and Project Update.
Yes, this is just the standing item on every agenda, and it provides an opportunity for any of the active and current subcommittees to provide an update to the commission on any activities since our last meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to the commission in case there's any updates to share.
I have an update on the 501c3, I forget the name of our committee, but the committee that talks to all of the organizations. We do not have anything on the agenda in the coming months, but we're hoping to in the fall to have another meeting with the youth groups and the other users. But I just wanted to bring to the commission's attention that right now our local organizations, not just in Redondo Beach, but Redondo Sunset would be one of them, along with South Bay Pony up in Manhattan Beach, and 310 baseball organization that does work in both Redondo and Manhattan Beach, and other local baseball organizations are hosting right now players from Japan that are staying with host families in Redondo Beach mostly, and also in Torrance, some of the families. There are 54 Japanese kids playing baseball locally at Redondo High School, at Alta Vista, and at several other fields going on this week. And they are leaving and going to Orange County or down to San Diego for another week after they leave here. And then it's a friendship organization through Pony Baseball that, so what happens is we fundraise and we host Japanese players when they come here. And we provide the games and the housing for the players and transportation. And then the following year, the local community, Redondo Beach, Torrance, Manhattan Beach, sends players to Japan. And it's been going on and on, back and forth for the last 8 years that we've been involved. And so that's happening now, and I just wanted you guys to be aware of it. And next year, we'll be sending the kids to Japan. Which is a really good thing. So shout out to all of them that are doing a good work. And on that, I'm done. Thank you.
And then as far as I'm the historical commission liaison, and I was going to save this to the end, but since we're here, I might as well do it now. It'd be nice for next meeting to have an update on both those projects, just to see where we're at with the Ito Park. I just don't know where we discussed that several months ago, and
Yeah. I was actually going to provide an update on the Ito Park as part of my director's report, but I can do it now if that's.
yeah, sure, yeah.
So that project, we did submit to the Public Works Department so that they can prepare it and discuss it as part of the CIP project consideration. And unfortunately, that project was not selected to be included in part of this year's CIP program. So the funding just unfortunately isn't there. So that project is not moving forward at this time.
For the mural?
No, this was for the full park renovation, including the plantings, there was sculptures, walkways, and that type of thing. So unfortunately, that project is not moving forward at this time.
But it doesn't mean it won't.
Certainly, no, we can continue to include it as part of subsequent budget discussions.
Okay. And then now that we had that response, essentially from the Historical Commission, that sort of answered our questions months after the fact that we had at that May meeting, is it possible to then bring that back to an agenda?
Are you just the park signs, the ones that?
So that was the other project.
So I can quickly provide you just kind of a quick update on that. Where the commission left off is, if you remember the discussion, there was just a lot of questions on how the Historical Commission envisioned that. And so what the commission, the Parks and Rec Commission, Rec and Parks, requested was for the Historical Commission to almost package it up a little bit more of what their vision of the program, or the signage would look like, how number of signs, where they would be located, so that you all, when you were reviewing it and considering whether to recommend it, had a better idea of what it would fully encompass, because it was just kind of an open book at that point. So we did send that back to the Historical Commission. At this time, I don't know if that has regenerated on their agenda for consideration. I will follow up and bring you an update on it, but that's essentially how that conversation went. So I understand from Mr. Morocco's comments that there may be a disconnect there between the Historical Commission was looking for guidance from you all for consideration, but it really, you all were looking for consideration from the Historical Commission because they were the ones that generated the project idea. So, but I'll circle back with Historical and let you know where they are on wrapping that up for you guys to reconsider.
Because just, I feel a little bit of responsibility because I was supposed to be the liaison. So I guess if they're having quorum issues and it's not, coming back to them, I think as a commission, we'd be happy now that we have more information to take it on and decide how many signs just to move the project forward.
Well, certainly, if you would like us to agendize that again to rediscuss, you're welcome to do that. I just would need to have a motion, a majority of the commission.
Right,
So
that's what I'm, I'm sort of.
My only comment on that is that it is their project. That they should be thinking through what the project should look like and then presenting that to us. It's not really, I think we already gave them our feedback and to come back and reduce, the number of signs, but to tell them exactly how many signs we think it really should come from them.
Yeah, because we don't know what the information they would have, like how many.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
I could say. what's the 10
I
signs
think
there.
I'm just worried it's going to stall completely just because Mr. Morocco's no longer on the commission. And then
True.
if they're having quorum issues, then I just would hate the whole thing to shut down. I agree with you, though. Obviously it wasn't our project, but at the same time, I don't want the whole project to completely die. So.
Well, maybe what I can offer is I'll reach out to the liaison for the commission and get an update, and I'll provide that at the next meeting. And then at that time, if you'd like to pick it up again, we can reconsider that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Are there any other subcommittee updates?
We're looking at gathering up more of the volunteer acknowledgements.
I do have an update for my director's report. Do you want me to
Please.
provide that now? So we have been working with the subcommittee on that, which I would like to just mention that with Commissioner Light no longer on the commission, that just leaves Commissioner Escontrias on the volunteer recognition subcommittee. So at some point, if anyone else is interested, please let us know, and at a future meeting, we can add you to that. And so essentially what we were doing is we were looking at the application and the guidelines that the commission approved, and really in essence just separated the two so that when someone was submitting the application, they weren't also submitting the guidelines. It was just two standalone documents that worked hand in hand with one another, and I think work more cohesive with that. We are still currently working with the city clerk's office to update the commission's webpage so that that will become the landing page for that program. So anyone interested in applying or getting information can go to that webpage. There will be a link for the application as well as information on the program.
It's up now? I'm sorry to say.
We're still working with city clerk's office. So the city is updating its website, and I don't want to misspeak, but I know that the new enhanced website will be going live in a few weeks from now. So I don't know if there's pause there just so that we can update it once it's been, once the new website's been uploaded, or if it's too difficult to upload now versus it being automatically uploaded. So I will circle back with them on that, but that's our end goal, is that information will be online. And then once that's finalized, I will email the link as well as all of the documents, the updated documents, to you all in the commission so that you have it readily available to share with anyone who you think would be interested in nominating, or even if you have someone that you'd like to nominate for that. So just know that will be coming soon. But in the background, we are making some just minor administrative edits to the process on that.
Thank you.
Are there, that's still part of our subcommittee review and project updates, is that right? So if there's no more updates, let's move on to J3, Director's Report.
Okay, I do have a presentation or some images I would like to share, so if I can get those displayed. So I have an update to provide you on the Dominguez Park Playground. If you remember, the commission approved the final design, which is the upper photo. This was approved by the city council a few months ago. As we were finalizing all of the specs for the equipment against all of the other vendor and contracts and all of the intricacies of this project, it was realized that the slopes on the two areas where those two hillside slides are, so where those two circles are in the upper picture, it's not sloped enough to support a slide. So essentially, the slide won't slide. You won't be able to have enough momentum. So we had to kind of quickly relook at the design and figure out what we could fit in its place. And so we went back and listened to the commission's discussions and looked at the conceptual plan and really tried to find some alternate equipment that was supportive of all of that input. And so the bottom photo is going to be The final recommended playground, this will still need to be formally approved by the city council at the time that they approve the contract with Game Time so that they can actually do the install work here. But I just wanted to show you this since you guys did so much work, especially the subcommittee on this. So these are some, the picture on the left is the photo that we just saw on the bottom. And then I can show you on the left-hand side. So the photo on the very bottom is a roller slide. So it's essentially just a bunch of rollers, and that helps gain that momentum that we need to get down that slide. Because of the cost of that is so much higher than the cost of a regular slide, we were unable to do 2 of the roller slides because we really wanted to keep within budget because I know that was very important to the commission. So on the right-hand side of the photo, on the other hillside area is going to be a separate type of a rope climb type of equipment. So we were saddened that we couldn't replace it with another slide, but that we wanted to make sure though that if we couldn't put a slide there, that component was different than other ones throughout the park. So if you'll remember, there was quite a bit of discussion that over on this left-hand slide, the hillside over here, we talked a lot about all of the different components here and having that just different elements identified there so that the kids had a variety of equipment to play on. And so we made sure that what we added on the hillsides did not conflict or were not consistent with the stuff that we already had. So unfortunate, we're sad that we had to make these slight adjustments, but I feel confident based on the catalog of equipment that Game Time has and the input that we received from the commission that these 2 changes are not changing the intent and the playability and the enjoyment of the playground, which I know was certainly the goal of the subcommittee and the commission. So just wanted to inform you all because you again did so much work on the playground here. So I didn't want this to come as a surprise later down the road.
So there's 2 slides total at the park, or is there a baby slide somewhere else that's just not pictured here?
So yeah, I believe there is. So in the upper photo, in the background, there's the 2 to 5-year-old play area that has a small slide with it.
Okay.
And then there's the large slide coming off of the larger play equipment right in the middle. And then we'll have the hillside slide. So essentially there'll be 3 at least. There might be another one off the other side of the larger playground equipment, but I can't recall.
Can't remember either.
Yeah, but we'll have at least three different slides. And I believe they're all different. The one in the front is a circular. Obviously, we'll have the roller slide on the hill. And then in the back on the kids area, the smaller, I believe it's just a straight slide, if I remember correctly. So there'll be the variety with those as well.
Okay.
And then also talking about Dominguez Park, I just wanted to give you a very quick heads up on a future projects that is upcoming. In the photo here, this location, which is currently at the park itself, it's in the northeast corner of the dog park area. That was installed by Southern California Gas Company several years ago with the purpose of allowing Southern California Gas to do its federally mandated inspections of its pipelines without having to shut down 1/90th for 9 to 10 months out of the year. And so some of you may recall that happening every few years, and it's very difficult to do that, and especially on a major arterial road. So SoCal Gas installed that equipment there. So they are now on their cycle now to have to do their pipe testing and cleaning. And so they're going to put this facility to use. And so I'm bringing this before you because part of the usage of this facility is requiring them to utilize some of the dog park area and fence it off for 9 to 10 months, beginning sometime this month or in September. We're still working on the final language for the agreement. And so the area marked in blue is the area that will be cordoned off by fencing. We have coordinated this with our dog park team and our nonprofit organization that helps us with the dog park, and coordinated it especially because to the extent that the dog training area, which is the kind of bottom half circle just south of the blue box there. That will be fully accessible. Currently, the only entrance into there is from the dog park area. And so what we're doing is Southern California Gas Company will be required to install an entry gate on that western side of that fence. So really the only area affected here is the area in blue. So just want to give you guys a heads up. We are working on the final language agreements here. Southern California Gas Company will be making payments to the city for usage of the space. So we're certainly not just handing the keys over to such a used part of our park here. But in doing this, it certainly does help the traffic concerns on 190th. So this was part of the installation of this equipment. So again, I just kind of want to give you a quick update on that.
Can
Yes,
I add to this?
sure.
Okay. In working with the dog park, one of the biggest things that we were well aware when this whole project started of the impact on 190th. So it was one of the things that we believed at the time, and I've been with the dog park for 22 years, that it was for the benefit of quite a bit within the city for this. We have been aware of what's been coming down as far as this. We knew this was part of the agreement, and I believe we believed that it would occur possibly like every 3 or 4 years, not necessarily every year for 4 months or whatever. We looked at this, and we believe that the impact would be minimal. Actually, I would say medium, because not a lot of people utilize that lower end of the park. The advantage to that is obviously we're not going to see any of the money that's going to the city for that. But when they leave, they actually leave it better than when they found it, which generally means they're probably going to reseed the whole area for us, which would mean it's at no cost to the dog park nonprofit itself or to the city, because they end up coming and doing that. Also, along the same lines, starting next Monday, we are finishing, I believe, the final phase in redoing the fence line throughout the whole dog park. Basically, the way it's going to work is that they will come in, they will drill holes approximately 5 to 6 inches beyond the fence line, and then put the poles in and then roll the fence out. This way, they're not going to take out the existing fence or put anything else like that. So by the time this project is ready to roll, the fence line should be all done. What we have done in the dog training area, it says dog training area, is actually our obstacle course. That we have just laid a slab down for a separate entrance via the path. So we're actually going to remove a couple of the obstacles so that you can gain access via the outside of the park and not through the inside of the park. And the additional fence line for the additional entry into the park will be taken care of based on the budget of what we have for the fence line. It's incorporated into the fence line. So we are probably going to get some gripes. We know that that's what's coming down. But like I said, in even the time that I'm there, that lower end right there is rarely used as much. It's not like the upper. So, thank you.
How's the obstacle course looking?
I'm sorry?
The obstacle course.
What about it?
You like it?
Oh, I love it.
I gotta go out there.
Well, in fact, we are looking at a project, and we haven't decided yet, of putting a small dog obstacle course either next to the large dog obstacle course or actually in the small dog park. We have already some of the stuff. That actually was a project of a Boy Scout project, partially funded by the Boy Scout as well as for Southern California Gas Company as well. So, and then what we've done is we rearranged some of the seating to now that we're going to move some of the seats outside of the park. So if people wanted to sit and watch people go through the obstacle course, they can do that as well.
Great. Thanks.
And that concludes all of the director's reports.
Why, thank you. Okay. That concludes our meeting here. Any member items and referrals to staff from the commission? Then,
Chair, I just want to add that there was an e-comment that just got submitted for an agenda item that we'll add on to the record.
okay. Do you want to read that or?
It's up to the commission. It's on the sailing item, I believe. And so since the item's already passed, we're not required to read it, but if the commission would like us to read it out loud, we can do that. But since you've already taken action on it, it's completely up to you.
If you guys are curious, we can read it, but I think it's going to be included in the report. So, you want to
I
hear
would
it?
say hear it.
Yeah, let's read it.
Clean, go ahead. It's dirty, go
I
ahead.
haven't read it, but
Careful.
Sarah Martin,
Okay.
Sarah Martin stated Redondo Beach Sailing Club at the city's request also spent thousands of dollars of club funds to purchase the city boats on which RBSC members sailed. The city allowed RBSC members to sail for free on city designated boats for 3 hours most Sundays. Club members paid extra fees to the city to rent city boats for use at other times. RBSC dues were $135 a year. When the city declared that it was a sailing club, they charged $300 a year for fewer boats. City staff again knowingly misstated the terms of the Portofino lease. Compliance means that the city will have no claim or control over the use of those slips. For the first time ever, the city failed to get an annual aquatics grant from the state, possibly because they wanted $20K to buy yet another boat in Texas. That application contained several material false representation of the city's sailing program. The city has had a kids sailing camp for years. They say they do. They did not include every sailboat in the fleet, and their participation numbers are wildly inaccurate. Probably good that our city did not get state money based on material misrepresentations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if there's no other comments, moving on to item L is adjourn to our next meeting, September 13th. Thank you.
So we do have to have a motion to adjourn, please.
Yes.
Sorry.
Motion. Second. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. See you all on September 13th.
Good job, tonight. 13. Thank you.
I had a quick question.